I I hope everyone is doing great. So we're just waiting for more people to join, and we'll start this in a minute or so. So till that time, I would request everyone to write your city from where you have joined, so that we also get to know from which part of India we have our attendees, and how we can help you with that. Okay. So I would request if you can write your city name. Khushbu from Mumbai, that's really great. From Mumbai, we have.
Ahmed, it would be great if they
uh,
could say from which organization they are. That would really help to give us some context.
yeah, definitely. So you can write your company's name also. We have Ankur Mehrotra from Bangalore. Great. Amol from Pune. Madhura from Pune. Okay. Almitra from Mumbai. Amol from Kolar. Great. Sushant from Bangalore. Great. So we have now got good number of people. So till the people are joining, we can just start with the introduction, what Meteonic is and how we can help you in that. So let's get started. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Security as a Growth Engine, how modern authentication drives user conversation, trust, and revenue. My name is Amit Kumar from Meteonic Innovation, and I'll be your host for this session. Meteonic is proud to be a partner with A Shield to bring you this conversation on how modern authentication can drive trust, conversations, and revenue for digital businesses. India's digital ecosystem is scaling faster than almost any market in the world. Banks, fintechs, e-commerce platforms, OTT providers, mobility apps, and marketplaces now serve hundreds of millions of users daily. Yet this growth has also fueled an alarming surge in cyber fraud and digital crime, with reported financial losses crossing 22,845 crores in a single year. Phishing, swaps, account takeovers, and bot-driven fraud are often treated as the cost of doing business, but they do not have to be. Legacy authentication, systems passwords, SMS OTPs, and traditional MFA were not designed for today's AI-driven large-scale attack surfaces and often introduce friction that hurts user experience, increases churn, and inflates OTP and support costs. This webinar is for leaders who are tired of constant phishing and SIM swap risk, bleeding money on OTP-based journeys, losing customers to slow or broken login flaws, fighting bots, device farms, and session hijacking, being forced to choose between secure and seamless. The core message today is simple. You do not have to choose anymore. Modern continuous authentication can simultaneously reduce fraud, improve UX, and unlock higher conversation. Meteonic Innovation is a specialized DevOps and DevSecOps solution provider with 19 plus years of experience and over 350 clients, including Fortune 500 enterprises. Meteonic helps organizations modernize their software delivery with best-in-class tools, automation, and security, bringing together partners across static analysis, application security, DevSecOps to build secure, high-velocity engineering pipelines. Our partner for today's session, A Shield, is a continuous trust and authentication platform designed for high-scale digital business across banking, fintech, e-commerce, mobility, and OTT. A Shield delivers phishing-proof, frictionless authentication by eliminating passwords and outdated SMS-based 2FA. Using post-quantum immune cryptography and strong device binding to stop fraud in real time. A Shield has been deployed across large quorum platforms, protecting massive volumes of authentications and transactions while blocking bots and fraud without slowing down genuine users. We are delighted to have our two distinguished speakers from A Shield with us today, Anil Kumar and Yashraj Palaka. Anil is an executive vice president for growth at A-Shield, where he leads global expansions and go-to-market strategy. With over 2 decades across consulting, product innovation, and business development, he has helped Fortune 500 leaders adopt AI-driven automation, risk intelligence, and modern digital platforms. And he regularly mentors startups and teams at the intersection of strategy, technology, and culture. Yashraj is the co-founder and engineering head at A-Shield with a background that spans from hardware and circuits to large-scale software and cybersecurity. He drives the product vision and roadmap at A-Shield, building and shipping security technology that solves real-world fraud and authentications problems while delivering a delightful user experience. In today's session, you will learn why OTP's password and legacy MFA can be no longer keep up with AI-driven phishing, credential abuse, and device farm attacks. How continuous device-centric authentication can eliminate phishing, SIM swap abuse, and automated fraud without user visible friction, and many more. So without wasting much of your time, let's get started. And you can write your question and answers in the chat box. We will be happy to answer them by the end of the session. So I'll request you to write your question and answers by the meanwhile. And Anil and Yashraj, the virtual stage is all yours.
Thanks, Ahmed. That was a long introduction, and thank you so much for introducing Meteonic first, and of course, A Shield as partners. Basically, our quest to eliminate fraud. As you mentioned earlier, there's over 2,000 crores of fraud in just India, and this is spanning every sector, whether it's e-commerce or fintech, or whether it's OTT or the gaming sector. All of these are now becoming, victims to what we would call a fraud agenda. So, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for taking the time out. You've got your thousands of emails, your SOC alerts, and stakeholder calls coming through, and thank you for taking this time out to listen to what we've got to say today. Uh, I'm based in California, and we, as a made in India company, are among the few startups that have started with a product-based approach to security. India is known for its services-led IT growth. I think A Shield is among the few products, especially in the cybersecurity world, where people look to Israel and some of the other organizations on the security space. So A Shield is quite unique in that sense that we've attacked the product based approach to solving fraud. Now, a month ago, I was at Money 2020 in Las Vegas, and it was interesting to see the world's largest financial markets, which is Money 2020's fintech push. It's all about digital payments, and there was a new section that was launched just this year, and that was the fraud summit. And this was the opening of the whole 2020 was about the fraud summit, where people were talking about their experiences with fraud. And I think some of the key takeaways that I had from Money 2020 was about fraud in 2010 is pretty much where the United States is talking about fraud. It's a pre-AI era, it's a pre-bot era, it's a still in very much in passwords. OTPs are still something fairly brand new. The market seems to be fairly behind. And some of the messages that as you talk to enterprises, whether it's Visa or a MasterCard or modern digital bank, something like Silicon Valley Bank, all of them are saying the first approach to how are you tackling fraud is, oh, we have biometrics to log in on the device. We have something like a multi-factor authentication. We have got all the risk metrics covered. We are fully compliant with all of the risk, monitors requirements for compliance, etc. The overall underlying theme, which I was shocked to learn, is that fraud is inevitable. This is going to happen irrespective. And my answer to that is, guys, no, fraud is not inevitable. I think it's something that can actually become a driver or a growth engine that we are actually looking at it the way India looks at fraud. So my first takeaway is that India thanks to the phenomenal CISOs and the phenomenal security experts that we have, we are among the most attacked country in the world from a fraud perspective, and we think we have cracked it with customers. And our initial few years has been, rather than going into multiple customers, it has been to deep dive into some of the top fintechs in India to look at use cases that solve not just a few thousands of transactions, but we are doing it at scale. Not at scale alone, but it's also addressing things that are becoming a problem from a point of view of the user experience. Normally, the more you increase your ability to secure fraud, you're adding on security layers after layer on top of layer. There's bigger investments coming on top of that. But the fact of the matter is, are you still inevitably avoiding the problem of fraud? The answer is still no. Despite being compliant, despite being have a two-factor authentication, have you still avoided fraud? The answer is pretty much uh, answer is no, right? So going with that, yes, you want to move down to the crusade? Yes, you're on mute. Can you see the crusade slide, please?
Yes, we can see.
Right. So, what is our crusade? What is A Shield trying to do? On one side, we are looking at minimizing friction. The fact of the matter is that each time you introduce friction, each time you introduce a password, each time you introduce an OTP, there are drop-offs. Drop-offs means lesser interaction, lesser engagement. Engagement means lesser transactions, and that transaction volume is what you're looking at to bet your business on. And that's where we see that one of the key things is how do we reduce friction? Now, is friction possible and is the user experience something that we have to compromise when we are increasing security? Actually, we've done the opposite. While we're increasing security, we've got had over 2 billion transactions with zero break-ins, zero phishing, and zero fraud. So we have actually made it faster. As you will see in the demos that Yash will show you, it's going to be at sub 150 milliseconds is the speed, which is faster than a blink of an eye. You will see how we are mitigating it. Compliance is not just a security checkbox. It's not about having all the compliance requirements done. It's not a probability. It's 99.9% secure is not good enough because fraudsters are so smart that is at 0.001% that is breaking into an employee or an employee partner that is open to break in. That's where it becomes a deterministic problem. It has to be either you are protected or you're not. It is not a 99.9% problem. It has to be a 100% deterministic problem. So quickly, let's jump into the agenda for today. Yash, if you could bring up the agenda slide, please. It's fairly self-explanatory. The agenda for today is how do we address this 22,000 crores and above problem, and how do we mitigate that? As in the US, they say this is something is something that is inevitable. We say no, that's very much possible. In our 2 billion plus transactions, we have not seen a single fraud. And how do we do that? It's by introducing the continuous trust platform. Now, how do you build continuous trust? What is the technology behind it? What is the quantum immune cryptography that Amit talked about? How does that protect you? Is that not protecting you today, or is that taking care of tomorrow as well? And that's where quantum immune or quantum safe comes into play. We'll go a deep dive into one of our largest customers, which is Bajaj Finserv, where we have multiple use cases, and we'll talk about that case study, and then we'll jump into an exclusive Q&A. I'd like to jump into the quote. Our founder, Shekhar, who is probably going to be addressing the Q&A as well. I love the quote that Shekhar said that we are talking about here. For decades, the world believed that security and customer experience were opposites. Strengthen one and the other gets weaker. But in A Shield, the whole first principles approach to that was how do we end that compromise? Security at the cost of user experience? Not a possibility. With the right authentication foundation, businesses never had to choose, and users finally get the best of both worlds, both a frictionless world and an uncompromised security. So Shekhar will be talking to us a little bit more about his journey. Shekhar is the patent holder for the technology behind it. The process of quantum cryptography has been patented by A Shield, and this is what makes us so unique in how we are battling the fraud and the compliance issues that we are helping people comply with. So, coming to the crux of the matter, we are really getting into the meat of it. Where has the market been? The market, as we said, is largely depending on passwords, looking on two-factor authentication. The threat advancements, which we talked about 80% of the breaches are because of passwords. Passwords seem to be the entry point for which lots of fraudsters are entering systems, whether it's at the employee level, which is being addressed. We will talk about the threat landscape and how it's being addressed at the enterprise and their partners, as well as enterprises to the end customer. So we're talking about the customer experience, right? About 85% of the users do not return to an app after a single bad experience. But the question is, if they go to the next app, is that app significantly better, right? Even 76% and above are switching brands after a bad experience. So once they're switched, they tend not to come back. That's the bad news. Now, regulatory enforcements are only a tick box, but companies that are usually not very sure whether we go with the security or whether we go with the user experience, I think that's a solution that A Shield is trying to address at both ends. So really the agenda is about how do we solve the 22,000 crore problem? How do we eliminate phishing, which is the at the level of the passwords and the two-factor authentication that we're going into, and then we'll talk how we've done this at Bajaj. So this is a scenario. Yash, are we at the 2010 versus 2025 slide? You're on mute, Yash.
Yeah, this is the 2010 traditional security and the modern landscape that we face today.
Right. So as you can see, guys, we're talking about the United States and many of the other countries that are using traditional security by stacking one security product or the other. Budgets are going up. CISOs do not have full control of their budgets. In many cases, they're still dependent on the CIO or the CTOs for their budgets. And that is why frauds and fraud control, which is being looked at as something that's not a problem they can crack, is becoming the problem that we're looking at solving. What's happening in 2025 is at a different scale. We're talking about bots doing millions of phishing attacks or looking at openings in enterprises. There's a 4,000+% increase since 2022 alone, which just tells you how big the threat is becoming. And it's with AI and deep fakes, etc. The problem is going to become larger. Now, real-time token theft or account takeovers or swim swaps are problems that still we are solving on a daily basis. Now, customers come to us and say, can you help us with the SIM swap problem? The problem, yes, we solve that. How about session hijacking? Yes, we do. So how do we do this is something that we're going to be addressing in a lot more detail. So how do we make this quantum safe? Okay, we're talking about leading innovation and redesigning authentication workflows at scale without disrupting the user experience. We are talking about being quantum safe, which means we're talking at levels which are far beyond what we are using at UPI today. I think the proof of the pudding really is in the fact that we have had zero frauds in over 2 billion cases, and our customer experience with Bajaj FinTech will tell you that. The beauty of that is once you have logged in, which is about a 4-second experience, you do not have to come back and re-log in or enter your passwords. And that continuous authentication or your persistent authentication is what we're looking at doing. How do we eliminate ransomware and some of the other attacks that are happening in today's world is something that we will show in a very brief clip that explains how we handle our quantum immune cryptography that's woven into the process, both in the login process as well as in the process of being re-authenticated. You want to try and run that video, Yash?
Sure.
Welcome to a walkthrough of the A Shield authentication process. In the next few moments, you'll see how A Shield enables an effortless and ultra-secure login and re-authentication experience powered by cutting-edge cryptography and zero-friction design. When the A-Shield SDK is triggered, we immediately start a parallel session through the telecom network instantly. In this step, we verify the user's mobile number, which acts as their unique ID. At the same time, a device-specific cryptographic hash is generated. This information is securely sent to our servers, where we instantly detect and block any emulators or bots attempting unauthorized access to the workflow. Our system is highly adept at stopping bot-based and reconnaissance attacks before they cause harm. When a normal trusted device is detected, all collected data is merged and enhanced with randomized cryptographic noise. We process it with a powerful quantum immune cryptographic algorithm far exceeding standard encryption. While leading systems like UPI use 2048-bit encryption, giving a randomness of 2 to the power of 2048, A-Shield takes it to the next level. Our approach achieves a randomness of 2 to the power of 7.2 million. In real terms, this makes our cryptography quantum safe, going well beyond current standards. Next, we apply a dynamic shredding algorithm, splitting this encrypted data into 3 unique fragments, much like tearing apart a jigsaw puzzle. One piece remains on the user's device, one is kept on our secure servers, and the third is stored on an isolated server, which can also be hosted by your company if you prefer. From this point onward, anytime a user interacts with the app, whether making a new payment or accessing a service, authentication happens in just 150 milliseconds with zero friction. During each re-authentication, these 3 fragments are seamlessly recombined to verify the user, recreating the original cryptographic puzzle. If anything is out of place, down to the smallest detail, authentication fails, instantly blocking unauthorized access. After each authentication, all cryptographic pieces are destroyed and regenerated using fresh data and noise, with a new splitting algorithm. This ensures ongoing security, like a new jigsaw, every session. Additionally, our system runs deep source integrity checks, eliminating any chance for tampering or interception. Thanks to A-Shield, the end user enjoys a seamless, always logged-in experience, while businesses can be confident in world-class security every single time.
Great. So I think we'll quickly jump on to the parts which, of course, Yash will be going into a little more detail on what you just saw. There is a quick one. But what we're looking at is a near 100% protection from phishing, whether it's session hijacking, whether it's SIM swap or a man-in-the-middle attack, social engineering, theft of device, which is an interesting one, remote access trojans, session replay attacks, authentication token theft, active SIM card not being available and hack attacks coming from outside, from servers from outside the enterprise, change of device or a ransomware attack. All of these are something that we address. We do not depend on user actions. There is no PIN or password. The end user experience doesn't have to change. There is no major, the user has to do pretty much nothing. In fact, they have to do less. There's no impact even if the passwords or OTPs and your multi-factor authentication codes are compromised. So basically, there is no user training. There's millions of dollars going to user training and user threat management techniques. We don't have to go into any of those. So what we are having here is a frictionless experience. Now, where do we play in the whole space of we have Cisco, we have Microsoft, we have IBM, we have a lot of threat players. I'll just quickly run into the next slide, which is explaining where we play. We are in the IAM space. You have people like Okta, you have Ping Identity, you have Microsoft, Beyond Identity, etc. The enterprise is the first level of comfort that they have is when the enterprise employees are taken care of. This has moved into beyond the enterprise, into vendors and partners, where you have beyond the enterprise partners players that are playing. So A-Shield could play a small role there, but really we are looking at the far right, where the enterprise to end user customers are where we are strongest, where the user apps, the browser-based apps that the customers are using to access the enterprise's services is where we play. So whether it's a browser or an app that's being downloaded in the millions today, in a highly about 67% of India's users are all accessing their digital apps to interact with the enterprise. That's why they're playing, and that's getting bigger. As it gets far more protected, it gets more and more and more intense. So if you're looking at that space between the enterprise and the end user, this is where A Shield stands in terms of the continuous authentication. Not many people offer continuous authentication like we do, because you authenticate at a login process, you're logged out, you have to go through the process again. Each time you're logged out and you come back as part of the process, or you have another level of security required when the transaction is being completed, you have to go to another level. In the case of A Shield, we do not have those multiple, which makes it totally friction free. And that is why we are so far right on that, and the degree of fraud protection so far that we have seen is 100%. So with that, I think we are leaving just one message with our CISOs and our security enterprise players is you can avoid ransomware. You can avoid your phishable attacks with A Shield. The CIOs and the CISOs are looking at reducing risk. We can eliminate risk in the authentication process. The problem is not what we can do today and what we have done in the past. I think really the problem that we're seeing today is the problem of not doing anything. So my only urge to all of you is talk to us. We're very happy along with Meteonic to address any of the questions that you have in the Q&A, or do one-on-one sessions after this. Yash, Shekhar, Nikki, myself, we are all available from anywhere in the world. We have customers who can actually come in and be our spokesperson for how they have mitigated some of these problems. I'd just like to focus on the real problem that CISOs are talking to us about is the cost of doing nothing. Not doing anything about it is not an option. So Yash will be diving a little bit deeper into what we've done in the financial sector with the Bajaj Finserv. We're talking to e-commerce giants, some of the names that we can talk about, some which we are under NDA with. But these are sectors that we are addressing in a very, very big way. And right now, the mitigation is millions of frauds mitigated or stopped and millions of dollars saved. Yash, over to you.
Thanks a lot, Anil, for the rundown so far. Good afternoon, everyone. Really glad to have you guys join us. Do please keep your questions churning into the chat box. We would be really looking forward to understanding your point of views and answering and making it more of an interactive conclusion rather than just an overall session from our side. Now, while Anil has already shed a lot of light on the kind of frauds and the kind of problems that the digital space today faces. And in a lot of terms, people have said, you know what, there's only so much we can do, and we can at best reach a compromise between security and experience where we say, okay, we'll bother the user with an OTP, but we'll only bother the user with an OTP every 6 months. Right. And for 6 months, it's a very easy experience. But after 6 months, we bother them. So that's the compromise state where folks have tried to reach when it comes to this entire security and user experience pathway. Whereas the counter question that enabled the entire unlocking of the potential that we saw is that why do we need to settle at a compromise? Why don't we get the best of the both? So why don't we get an absolute, definitely brilliant user experience where the user need not even do OTP after 6 months. They onboard with one click. The user is the same. They don't have to prove themselves every other time. We don't have to enable or have friction for them going forward. But then at the same time, can we ensure that the security is of the highest order? There is no one able to masquerade. I'm not able to masquerade as Anil. Anil isn't able to masquerade as me. That's the fundamental basis on which the entire approach in which what we have taken has been built on, which is to say that we're not going to settle on a compromise. We are actually going to go for the best of the both. Now, where does best of the both become critical? That's the next question. And the obvious answers for us were the likes of financials and banking sectors, because end of the day, money moves. When money moves, there is always it's going to attract fraud. But now with the current usage patterns, we know that we also cannot have too much friction in these scenarios. E-commerce is the biggest example I order and shop from my favorite e-commerce platforms 3 times a week. I'm not going to be proving myself 3 times a week on that particular platform, but I don't want someone else shopping on my behalf. So where do we find that approach that actually enables in terms of addressing these? Obviously, quick commerce is another. OTT is a very interesting scenario where I log in to watch my favorite content, but what if that content is also available in non-genuine scenario? How do you protect that content? How do you protect accounts? I have paid for the subscription. How do I ensure only me and my selected group of family and friends are able to use it and it's not actually out there on dark web? So these are the multiple use cases that have come up across all these domains that we've been able to address, and not just address in a one-off scenario, but in a continuous manner. Be it sign in, be it your rewards, be it the uh, last mile delivery options, the cash on delivery, subscriptions, all of these pieces are end of the day behind an authentication platform where end of the day, if I am able to prove myself to be Anil, whatever Anil had in his rewards or his subscriptions, all of that is going to be available at my disposal. So now we're going to quickly show you a small video of how we are doing this for one of the largest fintech in India. Bajaj Finserv is our customer. They have an EMI card. Now, that view, what used to be OTP and the entire friction and fraud that happens with OTP is now just a click away. Now, while this is the end goal, what this enabled us is that it enabled a massive uptake in the user experience, which is to say that all of a sudden people don't have to wait for OTPs. People don't have to wait for going into good network areas. They don't have to do retry OTP. Along with it, the entire threat vector where Yash as a gullible user could be sharing the OTPs otherwise, the entire phishing threat vector has been eliminated. Now, the piece that we want to also show you is that it's not just about reaching a compromise of doing a certain amount of friction and then taking a bet on security. It's about getting the best of the both. And as an approach, when we aim for best of the both, what happens is that we are able to ensure that the entire user life cycle is protected. Now, quickly show you how Bajaj Finserv is using some again ACD's capabilities to onboard their users, which is to just say a single click login. As you can see, there's a background verification that happens for about 6 odd seconds for the very first time, but there is no OTP that someone can steal from me. So if a fraudster calls me and saying, "Hey, I'm calling from XYZ, I want to reset your security profile, please share me your OTP." I don't get an OTP. I basically am the entire threat vector that today is being exploited has been completely eliminated from the critical path. Now, the other piece that we've seen is while a certain amount of SIM binding is on the UPI has started, UPI has been endorsing it for a large sector of a piece. There is a blatant lift shift approach that has been attempted by some of the folks. And the biggest challenge in doing this is that UPI was designed for a transactional process after the first initial login has been taken care. Now, when we lift and shift this kind of an approach, there are obvious blind spots that are being left out in the user's journey from a security standpoint. Now, this is just our team picking up one of the many fintech super app aggregators. And what we essentially did was post initial SIM binding and all the other processes that are done, we eject the SIM out and then carry out a transaction. Let's see what happens there. What you essentially see is post that when you click on pay, the transaction is successful. Now, while this is one of the source level tamper that we detect, there are many others, but these are blatant, simple source level tampering that is happening today and is unfortunately not stopped. Now, the same scenario, we just replay that with one of our with Bajaj Finserv at the same EMI card workflow. is to say that post the initial login, they go to the EMI card and we'll eject the SIM out there again as well. So here we go. We've gone to the EMI card. There's a basic verification. Post which now we'll eject the SIM card even from here. There's a normal flow. We're going to lock it back up and now eject the SIM card and then see what happens. Just going to go back. There's a clear flag from A Shield that says, hey, you know what? Something on the source is gone, is not right. I'm not going to let you unlock this. So it used to be an OTP based fallback, which has subsequently been removed post the transition period. So we've actually secured more than 100 odd million users for Bajaj Finserv alone. And what they've seen is that moment they've removed the phishable factor of OTP and on the onboarding journey, all their critical transactions and critical user journeys beyond that have subsequently been strongly protected uh, using AShield, and the frauds that they've seen is completely down to zero. Few numbers we've been looking at scenarios where about 70 odd million bot attempts were is something that we flagged. The entire elimination of phishable factors and phishing as an attack vector that is taking place, and ensuring that the sessions are bound to the user's device, to the user's context at that very point in time. And unlike many of the other platforms where your fraud mitigation and fraud prediction is more of a post-mortem scenario where uh, it only at the end of the day you can report how many potential frauds have happened. This is a real-time fraud detection and real-time fraud flagging platform because of the entire strong source integrity check that even the video earlier explained. What happens is the entire token replay attack has been eliminated. Now, today we've monitored the dark web where stolen tokens as a service is available, right? Which is essentially I can say, hey, I want platform A or platform XYZ. I want about 120 million session tokens of these platform. Now, believe it or not, actually, there are providers in the dark web that give you those tokens that you can use in replay from your systems and take over those accounts. And they come with fantastic customer service, which says that if a certain chunk of them don't work, they'll replace them for you for free, right? So that's the level of the security of a normal simple bearer token or an auth token that we today use. Like with the theme of the webinar today, while we can enable all these security features, what does it mean to the real user at the end of the day? Does it mean that they have to do 5 steps more, 2 steps more? In fact, they need to do nothing new. They can just continue interacting with the app that the way they currently they're used to, the way their current hand muscle memory for that matter allows them to go by, and the entire authentication and security is in the background. So this is us. This is a quick brief on how you can enable a very strong, robust security experience, a security platform backed with an extremely robust security that ensures that account takeovers, frauds are completely eliminated from your users' journeys. So we just pause here. We take a few question and answers, and while we're doing that, what I'm going to also do is just paste a meeting link that you can use to book a one-on-one session for a deep dive with our experts.
Great. Yeah, thank you very much, Anil and uh, Yashraj, for the valuable insights. And definitely you have already shared the link for that. But we have already got 2, 3 questions from RB. I believe you can answer those questions. Who within
Feel
your
free to open them up. The question can be, let them ask the question as well.
Yep. So I think we have
They can
got
unmute and ask the question.
uh
Okay, let me kind of, take this. Good evening, everybody. I'm Shekhar, the founder of eShield. So I'll just kind of, summarize what, the team has come across to you. We need to kind of give you a little bit of a basis on the background for how we kind of build this platform. We went to the first principles approach first. The way we looked at with the passwords, OTPs, and current state of authentications. Right? Before that, we actually span out to kind of solve the fraud, ransomware, account takeover problems. One fundamental thing that we have seen across everything from our first principles approach is as long as phishable factors are there, phishing is going to happen, account takeover is going to happen, ransomwares are going to happen. At a very basic hygiene level, we said that if we have to stop this problem, we need to have a non-phishable process in this entire phase. Now, what do we mean by non-phishable process? Either that cannot be social engineered, like the OTPs and passwords can be taken from the human interference, nor technically this can be stolen either from a databases breaches or the third-party breaches or anywhere. Even if these breaches have been happening, we should have a kind of a layer that will be a non-phishable process. That is one basic premise from where we are. The second important question that we answered along with this is that at every kind of a transaction we have seen in the first principles is there is always a trade-off between customer experience and the security. And most of the applications we have seen, they come to somewhere a compromised state between halfway through that. When we build the platform, we said, is it possible to get best of the both, best of the customer experience and best of the security? And this is what you have seen in the demo in the Bajaj FinServe app, where we almost completed 2.2 billion authentications on that. That's where we kind of achieved. With a one click today on a mobile app, the user is onboarded. And subsequently, we do stronger than OTP validations and verifications without user interference. Looking at the EMI card earlier, unlocking the EMI card, when they click that, there used to be an OTP process for them. Currently, with the unlock, all the authentication we have done on the background, stronger than OTP and no user interference. And subsequently, even the recent M-Parivahan malware, the popular malware that attacked even the UPI accounts of all the even the large players, in the Bajaj FinServe, in the UPI flow, where they have put the A-Shield, they've identified that not even a single fraud has happened on that, even though the entire country was on fire with the M-Parivahan app malware on that. So that is where on the core features of the platform. The other side of it is that when we were building this, we worked closely with the telecom operators, and I was personally involved with the industry body called GSMA when we were putting the standards together. And in fact, in 2018, I've open sourced one of my patents to the GSMA in the industry standard when we are trying to verify the number in the mobile space on it. What we kind of did is when we were building this platform, while we were doing the GSMA stuff, that whole platform was built on the GDPR compliance. So the first few questions is coming on the primarily whether what kind of compliance is that what we do. The whole platform that what we have, though we become a part of an app, but as our processes from end to end, these are the ones which are GDPR compliant on the process. So even DPDP that's coming in right now, but at everywhere, wherever the kind of the data and information flows, it is on the double encrypted forms that will be there. Whether the data is on motion or data is on stored in either of the stuff, right? And then we follow the very strong GDPR standards when it comes to even the other implementations, the way we go about in the cases. The other interesting question is on this algorithm, or whether this is NIST related, NIST kind of understanding. In fact, the lattice-based cryptography through and where NIST is coming out with the standards, our researchers has contributed towards that in the lattice-based cryptography. But there's a distinct difference here in which the traditional post-quantum cryptography and this cryptography is compared. Most of the post-quantum cryptography they're using for PKI replacement. Now, we are not doing towards a PKI replacement. We use this cryptography to encrypt our payload, the authentication payload. Okay, that's where you have seen that we split into multiple mechanisms, merge, and then kind of do the source verifications and completely bring that in. That's on the kind of on the PKI comparison part of it that we have.
Should we go to the questions answers, Shekhar?
Sure. I mean, I've answered first three questions that has come from RB.
Okay.
Okay.
So if you
next one is a link, and this one from Pramod. Offer real-time detection of automated scripts, emulators, and rooted devices. Yeah, we do much more than this actually, in a way, because the emulators was the first one in the Bajaj we've seen. I think in the numbers we have shown, almost in the first 6 months, the 7th month, 17 million emulator attacks has been stopped. In fact, we have seen that from those sources, the attacks stopped coming in because we not only do the device binding, SIM binding, mobile number binding, and the mobile network binding. Generally, you have only one or two kind of a components in this. Ours is kind of a end to end on that. So in the process, what happens with the emulators? The first thing that what we see that the SIM will not be there. Even if SIMs are there are dead SIMs. That in the sense like it's not connected. So when we check that for the emulators, we also check whether the live connectivity to the mobile network is there or not. And this we do even if the user is on Wi-Fi. The mobile devices are on Wi-Fi, but we still will be able to. That's how we kind of do the scripts and the automated the source from where these things comes in. And that's what rooted devices has been kind of founded. In fact, we are able to find out which device specifically, in the Bajaj scenario, when a user is registered from a specific device, and if this device is rooted, and he kind of comes back with the same number and he tries to log in, we are able to detect on the runtime that this particular device was registered using this, was earlier the device intelligence is this. Now the device has come from a rooted or a factory reset device on this. And this is being given in a runtime error from eShield server to the Bajaj server in that real-time transactions.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Shikhar, for your answers. I believe so. If anyone wants to ask any question, you can raise your hand, and we will unmute you, and you can ask your questions if that suits you. Otherwise, you can just keep on giving your answers and the questions in the chat box also. So I believe we have a couple of more questions from Pramod and RB.
Might be better to unmute Amit.
Questions for that. Yeah, if you want to ask, please raise your hand. We will unmute you.
Can you unmute person called RB?
Yes, we have done it, I think.
No, RB is still on mute.
Showing me as a mute on that.
So
I think
he needs to open his mic.
All right. While for the benefit of the others, I saw that this question is there on the chat. Okay. The real-time SIM and device binding, only verified devices with active SIM presence can access account. Yes. Post binding of all these kind of together is what? He's raising an interesting question. How can one re-authenticate if they lose their phone or device? Right? Or the other question is also the corresponding question for that. What if he has changed his SIM? Right? These are the kind of possible scenarios that comes in when this kind of stuff, and how can we do it in the frictionless manner in the financial transactions. In fact, this is a very vulnerability hackers have used. to kind of swipe the accounts or to do the transactions, right? Now, what we do is on the runtime, let us say you pulled out a SIM and put it into another device and you try to register. The first thing what we do is on the runtime, when we verify the number and the corresponding device intelligence, we would be able to identify that this particular number was registered earlier and that device intelligence was this, but current device intelligence with this is kind of changed, and this on the runtime we give this response to the enterprise service. In the first case, as we discussed about the Bajaj FinServ. The most important thing, one of the problems we have solved, I mean, that is a part of the design it has come. I come from telecom background. As a telecom industry, we have not yet solved the SIM swap problem. That is, I go and submit fake documentation at the telco network. In India, it is a little bit more because you need to have a video KYCs and all stuff has been involved, but that's added a lot of friction. But in many countries, what happens is by somehow if I get a fake or fake documentation or through any process, I get a new SIM. The old SIM is automatically deactivated. In the OTP scenarios, all the OTPs will come to the new SIM on which it comes. Let's say in the Bajaj FinServ scenario, if somebody has got the SIM and he has to put in some device to get registered, when he's trying to get registered, we identify that this is the kind of a mobile number that has been registered, and then we also correlate whether it is the same mobile network. Now what happens is against this registered user with this SIM number, the mobile number is already been registered, right? And then that kind of a device intelligence is being changed along. This is where again that visibility comes to the enterprises on the runtime. And this SIM swap as a telecom industry, we couldn't solve it because once a SIM is out, there's no control for them. But because this is on the registered users, whether it is a banking or the financial institutions like Bajaj, we would be able to do that on the runtime with a very deterministic value. It is not a probabilistic. Most of the kind of solutions around this, I mean, we also use a lot on algorithms and the AI engines, but our fundamental dependence is on the definitive parameters. Credential stuffing, how quickly can eShield mitigate? RB, if you are have a questions, if you've been able to unmute, you can ask the question. How quickly can eShield mitigate credential stuffing or a brute force attacks on the BFSI apps? In fact, just a few months back, we have had this scenario where it is a large gaming application. What we realized in that is on the OTPs that's coming in, when the moment you kind of download an app or you want to relog in, there was no rate limit for that. Okay, many of these applications, especially if they're password dependent, and Anil knows a lot in US. Even there, they don't have. That means even the scripts and the programs can easily kind of play around the combinations and get hacked into that. So we kind of take them on a step-by-step basis of how many numbers we do. In fact, in Bajaj, for the first 6 months, we ran an analysis and we found that between the morning 2 o'clock to 5 o'clock, there were some kind of a multiple attempts of the logins. Then we found that who is one who could be kind of trying to do a transactions between 2 to 5. And then we highlighted the kind of numbers and the sources from where these things are coming. And many of the scenarios, they found that this is coming from the sources where the Bajaj had blacklisted those numbers. And they could be able to very clearly kind of define this and take this off the process. So this is where we kind of do this. The approach of a Shield. There's another company with a similar name, I think, the Shield and all. They do this kind of an analysis using an AI engines. Even there, it takes them almost about 3 minutes to come out for a very fastest online response. It's an offline. After 3 minutes, the transaction is done and the damage is done already. Right. In our case, what we do is we on the runtime is where the responses have been given. Our approach is also on the runtime and on the definitive parameters, whether in alone or in combinations of this. And that's where we play with our algorithms, whether the one or in the combination of this. Right? which among them these things can be taken off along with that. So that's how we do. I don't know, one other point I just want to highlight. We are not as much as an authentication fraud management platform as much as once we onboard the user, subsequent authentication, as you have seen in Bajaj Finserv, once he is onboarded, at the EMI card, when he does a transaction, the subsequent verifications, we call this as a persistent proof of verification or a persistent verification. In our terms, we call PV. Persistent verification is that during the user journey, at any point of time, the app want to know or to validate the user without OTPs, without a password, without captchas, without any other authenticator codes, we can do it with zero friction to the user. Now, what we have observed and some of the data that comes from is that the number of successful transactions within a kind of a span of time before A-Shield and after A-Shield, there's a substantial jump in the successful conversions of it. Because one was that earlier OTPs, there are drop-off rates were there and the other scenarios. That means 2 points where we have added the revenue and the top line impact. One is the number of transactions have improved at the EMI card. The second is the number of drop-offs at registrations. Right? The OTP kind of not been coming in, the frictions along with that. With this, actually, it is actually going to be increased about 7 to 8% better conversions on the numbers. What's interesting that happened with the Bajaj is that earlier, like for OTP, you have to type the number and the next page will come where you have to type the OTP. Bajaj in the initial implementation, it used to have that there used to be a number, and when they click, A-Shield process used to happen on the background. With a one click, we go to the telecom network, verify the number, do cryptographic shares, do the verifications, and then we complete the process. All these things today you can see in the Bajaj in 6 seconds, this user is onboarded. Now, what Bajaj has taken a big leap of faith on that, they stopped asking the user for the mobile number itself. Whatever the kind of a number that has been there on the SIM, and then we kind of verify it by the A-Shield process, only those has been onboarded. Only those has been given an EMI. There was a fallback mechanism, but today the EMI card, if the A-Shield process is not validated, then they don't issue the EMI card. I mean, that's a level of trust. When we say continuous trust platform, over a period of time, that whole trust has been built into the process. Now, the biggest trust point that has came up from Bajaj, when they said that if this level of security is available, the CTO, CIO, Mr. Anurag has taken one landmark decision. That is, every time the app is powered up, right? Every time the app is powered up, they want to trigger the A-Shield. Today, if you look at it, Bajaj Finserv, you onboard and you close the app and you open the app, whatever the time after that, there is a background definitive verifications happening to the A-Shield before the homepage is loaded to them.
Also, Shekhar, there is a long time that the apps are given access, sometimes 6 months in the case of some of our customers, where they have to keep it open in the interest of customer experience. That leaves a huge vulnerability, or at least the time for vulnerability is very high.
Yeah. So in the financial services, I just also to respond to something on the Pramod and Rabi were putting in. The security and attestations, I mean, we are on the SOC 2 finalization, their final stages of validations, and then there's also following up with the ISO 27001. Plus, we follow our own standards into the lattice-based cryptography. That's what we do. As far as the data points collected by this, in fact, we don't take, as an SDK, we don't take any additional permissions from them. Whatever the app takes, those permissions only has been incorporated on that. As I said, we are a GDPR plus our approach. I know generally today in the days of AI, people call data is new petrol and the data is that and all. In our approach, we say data is a liability. Okay, so we don't take the data in that kind of format. Wherever it is required, I mean, this is in consultation with the app. Like in Bajaj, there are 2 permissions they take: phone state permission and SMS permissions, and that is a part of the the FinServe app itself. There is no additional permissions beyond this is required for eShield SDK to do. And there are scenarios in which we work even if the SMS permissions are also not being taken. There are other mechanisms through which we validate. In fact, we use the FIDO components. The FIDO is another kind of a standard of authentication along with that. So we use even the FIDO components also, which is equivalent of passkeys if you would have observed in the iOS and the Mac OS, plus the Windows Hello, and Android also does the passkeys kind of this stuff. But that we use as a layer, the base layer. Over and above that, the eShield non-phishable processes put into that. So there is a bunch of data that's been there. I mean, the question is, what logs of forensic data does eShield provide for audit, fraud analysis? So recently, a few months back, Bajaj undergone through the RBI audit. So the entire data set that has been required, because we are only a one authentication layer, we don't take any additional data, nor we are into any other process. Our core process from where it comes in, we provided the data. In fact, we provided certain process clarifications to the RBI. And I mean, at the end of it, the RBI audit we have gone through, and it has been verified that this audit has been successfully done. So the whole lot of fraud analysis we also do. We do the analysis with respect to the unusual behaviors we've seen. If somebody is kind of coming in during the daytime and suddenly that particular number is trying to log in the late nights, vis-a-vis the certain kind of a behavioral patterns also we'll see. I mean, from various means. Even on the SDK, we are trying to incorporate the gyrometric thing, which is a particular score has been created by the way he handles the device with that. And then if somebody's stolen the device, then that particular pattern is immediately been recognized and can seen it on that. So we have gone through the RBI audit. The most interesting thing was on the RBI audit. They had quite a lot of questions along with that. We supported Bajaj with all the inputs along with that, and they got a very good clarity and how and why, which data has been taken, how and why the process has been kind of scheduled that way. Subsequent authentications where without even the OTP stronger than OTP, the entire strength of it. And just for the information of the people from BFSI, we have been kind of educating the RBI for quite some time. It's almost been a year. If you have seen the AFAs that is coming, alternate factor of authentications, that's the input from where the eShield has contributed, educating the RBI about the limitations of the OTP and why should that be. To an extent, in fact, RBI went a step ahead. So the RBI has went a step ahead and said that the alternate factor of authentication can be used for payment transactions.
Okay.
Yeah, Arun, you had some question?
Yeah, hi Anil, hi Shekhar. Thanks for the presentation. Sorry, I got unmuted in between. Okay. My question is that if eShield secures the Wi-Fi connectivity, in case someone attempts to hack the password for the same environment, for the same network. And my second question is that does eShield also provides a comprehensive alert or maybe a dashboard kind of real-time report where it will tell you that how many attempts as far as the fraudulent activity is concerned that has been attempted, or any kind of malicious activity has been attempted for that particular device. Will that provide a real-time report so that we can able to analyze that? Thank you.
Yes. Yeah, I think the second one I'll answer first, Arun, because that's exactly the kind of what most important thing we want to give you. We want to give you visibility. The entire visibility of any kind of a patterns that we see is unusual on that. Okay. But more important than that, what we wanted to do is during the transaction phase itself, can I give you the real-time response so that based upon that you can take an appropriate action. I'll give you an example. Now, earlier when we used to have the mobile number also, when the user used to type the mobile number and used to verify, there used to be a process called match and mismatch, right? The numbers what he has typed and the number what we have verified through the. Now, what used to happen was that Bajaj said that, look, I have a genuine use case where in the OTP days, the husband's name, the EMI card has been issued, and wife does the shopping. And whenever she wants an OTP, husband used to transfer the OTP to her, and that transaction is to happen. And it's a kind of potentially genuine transactions. Now, when we kind of give it on a runtime, saying that the transaction from where it's happening and the registered devices are different, what they did is they went back onto their fraud management system and figured out the velocity parameters and figured out the history of that particular user, align that part along with the output given by the e-shield, and combined together, they built a decision-making system. So that's the kind of the interesting phase of it. The first question on the Wi-Fi, right? I mean, that's exactly that problem everybody wished that we could have solved, because most Wi-Fi's, doesn't matter, coffee shops, no matter where you go, there is. So the question that what we have asked Arun while building is that, having known that passwords are shared, having known that OTPs can be fixed, we said that it's a people problem in a way. Wi-Fi is a technical problem. Even for the people's problem, can we look at, is there a way that technology can it solve it? More or less the earlier acceptance was that what can you do when the user himself is giving all these kind of credentials and all this stuff, right? But is there a way? And that's where the source integrity check is where become very important. The moment any credentials have been taken, they have to replay it from another device. The traditional tokens are not able to solve this, because traditional tokens, as a server, if I receive the token, I will give a response back, right? But the token verified from the source, that is it coming from the same source on it, is where it strengthens the whole process. So if Wi-Fi kind of has been compromised and they got a password and is playing it from another device, that's where on the runtime we'll identify that it is coming from a different device, though the password is validated, though the OTP is validated. So that is a one quick kind of a runtime flag on which many frauds, in fact, UPI frauds have been stopped a lot, we have seen, by this very source verification process. Because the malware, the M31 malware which has come in, somehow it has crossed all the securities, app securities, even the Google securities along with it, right? I mean, there is an interesting article, I think CloudSec guy has published it in one of their blogs, the details about that particular app. I mean, that should be available still on that. How it has kind of bypassed all the kind of available securities along. But in the Bajaj, because we do the source verification stronger, not even a single kind of a stuff they could be able to take the accounts out of that.
Great. Fantastic. Thank you
I
so
think
much.
that was great session, and we are already out of time, and we have crossed actually the time.
Amit, actually, just one quick one.
Mhm.
As we are wrapping up, if you were to take away what we want from this session, to benefit from this session rather, is we are very happy to do POCs based on specific requirements that our customers might have. It's typically a 70K SDK that needs to be incorporated. It's a one-day process.
Right.
And as Arun was asking, several reports that can be given, how many frauds we have stopped, what is the potential account takeovers, etc., that have been prevented. All that can be given, and then we typically can continue with that POC into a full production mode if it's required. So the timestamp on that is very, very low. It's not a long cycle when a large investment to do a POC.
Understood. Understood. So definitely, sir, we will be in touch. We will also connect them, and we will ask everyone to connect to us for any of the session or any POC. We will be happy to give you a POC or proof of whatever we discussed about in the session. So just because the time is already we are short of time, so I would like to thank you, Anil. Yashraj and Shekhar sir for an insightful and practical session. And thank you to everyone who joined us today and stayed engaged throughout. We hope this has made it clear that you do not need to accept phishing, fraud, or broken OTP journeys as inevitable, and that secure experience can also be the smoothest ones for your users. For those who want to go deeper, Medionic and A Shield would be happy to connect with you one-on-one and schedule a demonstration or a POC. If you'd like a personalized discussion about our environment, a detailed demonstration of A Shield tailored to your use case, or guidance on integrity, continuous trust into your existing workflows with zero downtime, please reach out using the contact details shared on the shared in the chat box. Okay, and thank you once again, everyone. On behalf of Meteonic Innovation and A-Shield, thank you once again for joining Security as a Growth Engine, how modern authentication drives user conversation, trust, and revenue. Have a great day, and we look forward to speaking with you in a one-on-one session soon.
Yeah, Amit, there's a big thank you from all of us on the E-Shield. Really heartfelt thank for sharing your time and allowing us to share our solutions along. Thanks a lot for it.
Pleasure is ours, sir. Pleasure is ours. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you
Have a
so much,
great day.
Amit.
Everyone.
Thanks. Appreciate it.